Hi everyone, how are you all doing? The ongoing war by Putin against Ukraine is keeping the whole world filled with fear and terror. Nobody knows how this is going to escalate to even more dangerous situation. Putin is also saying that we will continue the war till the end. The world is afraid because Putin will not hesitate to use even nuclear weapons. Now, the world has reacted with fear at unconfirmed reports telling that there was an alleged chemical attack in the city of Mariupol. Mariupol is surrounded by Russian military forces. Let us talk about this dangerous chemical warfare in this video. Chemical weapons are usually made of toxic agents. They will kill, injure, make humans suffer from various deadly side effects. They are used in war against enemies. In modern warfare, chemical weapons were first used in World War I. This chemical gas warfare affected more than 1 million of the casualties suffered by soldiers. In the war, an estimated 90,000 civilians and soldiers were killed. Among the chemical weapons, the first one used in a war is called choking agents. They were first used by German army and later by the Allied forces in World War I. The first massive use of chemical weapons in World War I came when the Germans released chlorine gas from thousands of cylinders along a 6-kilometer line in Belgium. It was carried into the enemy lines by wind. But during the war, both sides mastered the new techniques of using choking agents such as chlorine and phosgene and other chemicals. Phosgene was responsible for roughly 80% of all deaths caused by chemical weapons in World War I. Coming back to Ukraine, the alarm was raised by some of the last Ukrainian soldiers still fighting against the Russians in the city of Mariupol. But there is a small twist here. They are a small but controversial element of Ukraine's National Guard due to their far-right tendencies. They claim that a Russian drone flew over and it was releasing a cloud of smoke. Immediately after that, 3 of their members suffered from breathing difficulties. These could be symptoms of a chemical or poison gas attack, but it is hard to prove that it was actually a chemical attack. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons is the authority that is called when there is a suspected chemical warfare, and they will search for evidence. But it could not go to Mariupol due to the ongoing fighting. A chemical weapons expert has said that even if uncontaminated samples could be collected from the scene, they would need to be taken to another country for analysis. It will take lots of time for analysis. But in the meantime, America, UK and other Western governments can also examine satellite imagery and other intelligence for any signs that chemical weapons units or vehicles were nearby. That is what the chemical expert said. But again, that won't give any answers immediately and it will take time to do that.
But even if there are evidence, what can the Western world do and what will be its response? But a higher official from UK has said that if Russia were found to have used banned chemical weapons, then nothing was ruled out in terms of NATO's response. That means NATO will do anything it wants and need to be done, including jumping into the war in Ukraine. But politicians cannot say definitive answers. Even if it is proven that there was a chemical attack, NATO would still be extremely reluctant to become directly involved in the fighting inside Ukraine's borders. So what can it do? At most, it would probably lead to yet more sanctions on Russia and a further stepping up of military hardware exports to Ukraine. There are different categories of chemical weapons. Choking agents like phosgene attack the lungs and respiratory system, causing victims to drown in their lung secretions. There are blister agents, like mustard gas, which burn the skin and blind people. Then there is the most lethal category of all. They are called nerve agents. They interfere with the brain's messages to the body's muscles. A tiny drop of these can be immediately lead to death. Less than 0.5 mg of VX nerve agent, for example, is enough to kill an adult. All of these chemical agents can be used in warfare in artillery shells, bombs and missiles. However, all are strictly prohibited by the Chemical Weapons Convention of 1997, which was signed by the vast majority of nations, including Russia. Now let us see when have they been used before. Chemical weapons were used in World War I. Then in Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. But the world really saw the deadly effect and agonizing suffering of people who are exposed to chemical warfare when the Syrian government used it against rebel forces. Russia says it destroyed the last of its chemical weapon stocks in 2017. But it cannot be verified. Then there are reports that there have been at least 2 chemical attacks blamed on Russia. The first was the Salisbury attack of March 2018. A former KGB officer who had escaped from Russia was poisoned along with his daughter by the nerve agent Novichok. Russia denied responsibility and came up with over 20 different explanations for who else could have done it. But there was a detailed investigation and they concluded it was the work of 2 officers from Russia's GRU military intelligence. To show their disgust, countries around the world expelled a total of 128 Russian spies and diplomats.
Then in August 2020, the prominent Russian opposition activist Alexei Navalny was also poisoned with Novichok and narrowly escaped death. That is why the world is afraid that Russia will not hesitate to use chemical weapons in Ukraine. There is some worst fear among many military analysts. They fear that if the Russian war in the Donbass fails to achieve its objectives, then in desperation, President Putin could authorize the use of chemical weapons on stubborn defenders. If Russia were to use weapons like poison gas in this war, it would be seen as crossing a major red line. But again, it's only the question of probably. That is, probably the West may take action. Chemical weapons played a decisive role in Syrian government's campaign to suppress resistance in rebel-held cities, killing and incapacitating fighters and civilian alike. The Syrian Air Force, which reportedly carried out dozens of these attacks, was supported and protected by the Russian Air Force. The general in charge of Russia's war effort there, Alexander Dvornikov, has now been appointed to run Russia's war against Ukraine. Can we connect the dots and come to a conclusion? There is an evil side about chemical weapons. It will come if the war keeps on going for weeks or months. Then the attacking military will try to break the will of defending forces. When this happens, the attacking military will use chemical weapons and it will break the will of the defending military. These chemical agents can spread through wind and it will even spread to underground shelters and bunkers. They will result in agonizing death and hence are also a psychological weapon of terror. Again, as the world watches in horror about the war in Ukraine, one can only pray and hope that it should immediately end. Thanks for watching the video till the end. Please like, comment, subscribe and importantly share the video widely. Thanks once again. Take care. Bye bye.